Do you need healthy vegan side dishes for Thanksgiving? I've got you covered. So last week on my Instagram stories, I asked you guys what kind of Thanksgiving dishes do you want to see? And a lot of you told me that you're most interested in the Thanksgiving sides. So that's what we're going to be making today. 5 simple, healthy, vegan Thanksgiving side dishes. Although these are really good for any time of year, not just for Thanksgiving. So as you guys probably know, I'm American and my husband is Canadian. And being that we live in Canada, we actually already celebrated Thanksgiving, but I actually still like to celebrate Thanksgiving in November. So Q and I are going to have 2 Thanksgivings this year, and I wanted to make some dishes that I grew up with and I remember eating every year for Thanksgiving. I always really loved the classic side dishes growing up, like mashed potatoes, cranberry sauce, stuffing. So that's what I wanted to make for you guys today, but of course with a healthy vegan twist. So I actually wanted to make preparing these side dishes a little bit easier for you guys. If you have ever hosted Thanksgiving before, then you know it takes a lot more time than you think it's going to. The one time that I hosted before, I thought everything was going to be done in like 1 or 2 hours, and it ended up taking me like 3 or 4 hours, and the guests were waiting for me to be finishing dishes. It was not good. So I'm gonna share with you guys a couple hacks on how you can prepare some of the things the night before just to help you out on the day of. But of course you can do everything that morning if that's what you prefer. So we are going to start off with our sweet potato casserole. So first we want to get a pot of water started on the stove, and then we are just going to peel and cube 3 large sweet potatoes. And these boil pretty quickly. They usually only take about 10 to 12 minutes. And while our sweet potatoes are boiling, we are just going to prepare our mushroom gravy. So first, of course, we are going to rinse our mushrooms. Slice off the tips of the ends, and then just give them a very rough chop. And we will also need half of an onion for this gravy recipe. Once your sweet potatoes are fork tender, you can go ahead and drain them and then add them back into the pot. And to that, we are going to add ½ cup of plant milk. I'm using soy milk, 2 to 3 tablespoons of maple syrup, depending on how sweet you like it, a 1/4 teaspoon of pumpkin pie spice, and a pinch of salt. And optionally, you can also add a ½ teaspoon of vanilla, and then just mash those until they are nice and smooth. Add a little bit more plant milk if you want them even smoother and creamier. And then just transfer them into your baking dish. And now for the mushroom gravy, we are going to add the ½ an onion to a pot with a little bit of veggie broth instead of oil. And we're also going to add in 3 cloves of garlic. Then once we've added our chopped mushrooms, we are also going to add 2 tablespoons of low sodium soy sauce and some fresh herbs. I have some rosemary and thyme. I'm just giving them a quick rinse and then adding in a few sprigs of thyme, just removing the leaves from the stem first. And about a teaspoon's worth of chopped rosemary. We also need a 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1/4 teaspoon of onion powder, about a tablespoon of nutritional yeast. And optionally, I really like to add about a teaspoon of white miso paste. I feel like it gives it that nice, rich umami flavor, but that is optional. If you don't have it, you can leave it out. And now we're just gonna add in 2 cups of veggie broth and let that simmer for about 10 minutes. Meanwhile, we can go ahead and rinse our green beans. And I'm just snipping off the ends with some kitchen scissors, but of course you can also use a knife. And then the last step of our mushroom gravy is to add a thickening agent. I'm using 1 tablespoon of arrowroot starch mixed with a little bit of vegetable broth. And you want to mix that separately and then add it into your gravy. If you pour arrowroot starch or cornstarch directly into your hot liquid, you will get lots of clumps, which is not pleasant. And of course, if you don't have arrowroot starch, you could also use cornstarch here. And go ahead and just turn up the heat a bit and let that thicken. So if you wanted to prepare some of the parts the night before, these are the ones that I would recommend. We just have, of course, the sweet potato mash without the topping yet. This will be super easy just to pop in the oven and bake when it's time. We have our mushroom gravy, which will actually probably taste even better the next day because it gives the flavors more time to develop overnight. And we have our green beans, which are just washed and chopped and ready to go in the oven when it's time. If you were doing another tray of roasted veggies, you could also prepare those veggies the night before and get them ready to roast in the morning. Oh, and the cranberry sauce. This is another great one to prepare the night before. I will leave my recipe for this in the description box down below. And one other thing that you could prepare the day before would be something like a grain salad if you were going to be serving that as well. That is great to prepare the night before, or at least just chop the veggies and get it all ready to assemble in the morning. So now we're going to whip up the mashed potatoes and the stuffing, which shouldn't take too long, but do keep in mind you're going to be using the oven for the stuffing as well as the sweet potatoes and the green beans. So if you find it's too many things in your oven, you could also do the green beans just steamed on the stovetop as well. So we're going to start with the stuffing because you need to dry out the bread in the oven first. And I'm just using this homemade sourdough, which is very basic. It's just flour, water, and salt. But if you don't have this, you could also use something like whole wheat bread if you prefer. And we are just going to slice this into cubes and dry it out in the oven at 300 degrees. I'm actually curious which of the Thanksgiving sides was everyone's favorite. Mine was actually stuffing, probably because I love bread, so anything to do with bread, I was always all over that. But I'm curious about you guys. Let me know in a comment down below which one was your favorite or is your current favorite. And even if you're not celebrating Thanksgiving, let me know which of these sides looks the best to you, which one you would want to try. So while our bread is dehydrating at 300 degrees, we are going to chop the other half of that onion, as well as a shallot and 2 cloves of garlic. And then to our pan, we are going to add a little bit of veggie broth instead of oil. And while that's heating, just chop your celery stalks. Then once your pan is hot, add in the onion and shallot. Add a little more veggie broth if needed, and then go ahead and chop your herbs. I'm again just using rosemary and thyme because that's what we've got. And once your onions have simmered for a couple minutes, go ahead and add in the herbs, the garlic, and the celery. You could also add in some vegan sausage here if you're the kind of person who likes sausage in your stuffing. I think the Beyond Meat sausages would make a nice addition. And now we are going to prepare our potatoes for our mashed potatoes. So I'm just removing the skins and chopping them up. Now I have heard to start your potatoes off in cold water. Apparently it helps them cook more evenly, so that's what I'm doing here. And now that our bread is ready, we are just adding that into the rest of the stuffing mixture, adding a cup of veggie broth, giving it a quick stir, and then into our baking dish. And we're going to want to bake that covered for about 25 minutes. Then once your potatoes are fork tender, go ahead and drain those. Add them back to the pot. I'm using aquafaba and veggie broth. I find aquafaba gives it a little bit of a fluffy texture, but you can just use all veggie broth if you prefer. I'm also adding a little bit of this roasted garlic better than bouillon paste, just to give it a bit of that roasted garlic flavor. And then we're also adding a cup of plain soy milk. You could also use some vegan butter in here. That would be really delicious, but if you do want to keep it oil-free, you can still get a nice creamy texture by just using veggie broth and plant milk. Now I'm adding a bit of pepper as well as some dried parsley. You could also use some chives in here. That would be really nice as well. And now before our sweet potato casserole goes in the oven, we are just going to add a quick topping. Mini marshmallows are of course optional. My husband doesn't like marshmallows, so I'm just doing half and half. I personally love marshmallows on my sweet potato casserole, so I'm just using these Dandy's vegan mini marshmallows. I know the marshmallows at Trader Joe's are also vegan, but of course most store-bought marshmallows are not vegan. They have gelatin in them. So just double check the ingredients to make sure yours are vegan if that is of concern to you. Remove the cover on your stuffing, bake for another 20 minutes, and that can go right alongside your sweet potato casserole, which will bake covered for 20 minutes. And now just preparing our green beans. Like I said, you could also steam them, but we are just going to bake them with a little bit of veggie broth, garlic powder, and onion powder. After 20 minutes, remove the cover from your sweet potato casserole and let that heat for about 10 minutes until your topping is nice and golden. At that time, the green beans can go in the oven, and those will only take about 12 minutes. And you can serve these with any kind of sauce you like. Okay, so here we have all of our healthy vegan Thanksgiving sides. We have our stuffing, our green beans, which I will serve with some cashew ranch sauce, our sweet potato casserole with walnuts and marshmallows, our mushroom gravy, and our mashed potatoes. Oh, and cranberry sauce. The cranberry sauce is also super easy to make. It only takes about 10 minutes and you can do it the night before, like I mentioned. So I will leave that recipe in the description box down below if you do want to check it out. And I do hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, don't forget to hit the like button down below. If you're looking for any of the other Thanksgiving videos I've done on this channel, I will leave those right here. And with that, let's eat plants, and I will see you guys next time.